1891, brought a discovery that would shake all of New York City. An employee of the East River Hotel unlocked the door to room 31 and recoiled in horror. On the bed lay the body of a woman, naked from the armpits down, mutilated beyond recognition. Her clothing had been wrapped around her head, as if the killer could not bear to see her face. Blood was everywhere, splattered across the walls, pooled on the floor, soaked into the sheets. Carrie Brown had not simply been murdered. Her body had been methodically butchered. Dozens of stab wounds covered her torso, and a cross had been carved into her left buttock, a mark suggestive of ritual, or perhaps a message. Beside the body lay the murder weapon, a sharpened table knife with a wooden handle, deliberately left at the scene. This was no spontaneous act of rage. The violence was too precise, almost surgical. The room had become a theater of death, where every detail spoke of cold, calculated fury. The news spread like wildfire. By noon, newspaper boys were shouting headlines on street corners, waving fresh editions in the air. Jack the Ripper in New York? The Whitechapel Horror crosses the Atlantic. Reporters eagerly drew parallels to the infamous London murders, sparing no one the grisliest details. The city braced itself for the worst. Was this the beginning of a new killing spree? Inspector Thomas F. Burns, head of the Detective Bureau and acting police superintendent, found himself under immense pressure. Only recently, he had confidently declared that crimes of this nature were impossible in his city, that the police had everything under control. Now those words rang hollow. City Hall demanded swift results. Newspapers accused the police of incompetence. The public teetered on the edge of panic. Burns understood that if the killer was not caught quickly, New York could descend into the same hysteria that had gripped London. His reputation hung by a thread, and he took personal charge of the investigation. Carrie Brown had once known better days. In her youth, she had performed on New York stages as an actress, reciting Shakespeare before admiring audiences. But time and alcohol are merciless. By 1891, little remained of that vibrant woman. Her habit of drunkenly quoting Shakespeare earned her a cruel nickname, Old Shakespeare, a mockery of her faded talent. She lived a desperate existence on the Lower East Side, selling herself for a few cents at a time, just enough for a bottle of whiskey and a bed for the night. When forced to choose between food and drink, the decision was easy. Carrie had spent many nights in the cells on Blackwell's Island for drunkenness and disorderly conduct. On April 23rd, she confided to her friend Alice Sullivan that she had not eaten in 3 days. Alice bought her a cheese sandwich, and later that evening, the two shared corned beef and cabbage at a Christian mission. It was the last proper meal of Carrie Brown's life. On the evening of April 23, Carrie did what she always did, searched for clients along the grim streets of the East Side. Around 8:30 p.m., she was seen with a man known as Frenchie, a common nickname in the neighborhood. Later, she was spotted with another Frenchie, Isaac Perringer. But the final man she accompanied that night was a third one, the man who would enter history as her killer. Mary Miniter, the East River Hotel's housekeeper, remembered him well. About 32 years old, roughly 5 feet 8 inches tall, thin, with a long, sharp nose and thick blonde mustache. He wore an old black bowler hat with a dented crown. He and Carrie registered as S. Niccolo and wife, took a candle and a bucket of beer, and went up to room 31. Within hours, one of them would be dead. At around 2 a.m., the killer left the room, locked the door, and took the key. Drops of blood trailed down the staircase. Halfway down, he stopped, as if reconsidering, then turned around and climbed to the roof. Crossing over to the neighboring Glenmore Hotel, he descended into the lobby and asked the night clerk, Kelly, for a room. His hands and clothes were stained with blood, and his speech carried a pronounced German accent. He had no money. Kelly turned him away and sent him back into the night. When word of the murder reached the Oak Street police station, detectives and reporters flooded the East River Hotel. What they found in room 31 exceeded even their darkest expectations. Inspector Burns launched a frantic investigation. Mary Healy, who had been drinking with Carrie the night before, and Mary Miniter were immediately detained, both for questioning and for their own protection in case the killer sought to silence witnesses. Both women mentioned the name Frenchie, prompting police to round up every man on the East Side known by that nickname. There were many Frenchies. Police and newspapers numbered them: Frenchie number 1, number 2, number 3, and so on. Witnesses were asked to identify them, without success. Burns grew increasingly frustrated. The people we relied upon, he later remarked bitterly, were drunkards, not intelligent enough to remember what the man looked like. One by one, the Frenchies were released. The case stalled. Pressure mounted, and so the police focused on the only suspect left. Frenchie number 1 was never released. His real name was Amir Ben Ali, a French-speaking Algerian who lived in room 33 of the East River Hotel, just across the corridor from the murder scene. Proximity alone made him suspicious, but the police claimed more. They alleged that blood was found on his door and doorknob, inside and out. Curiously, journalists present at the hotel that morning had noticed no such thing. Under intense pressure, Burns needed a result, and Amir became a convenient target. He was a foreigner, lived next door, and had no solid alibi. The prosecution built its case largely on forensic science, then a relatively new and impressive concept. Experts examined bloodstains on the victim's mattress, on a blanket in Amir's room, and on his clothing. Under microscopes, stereoscopes, and chemical reagents, science was expected to deliver the truth. Scrapings taken from beneath Amir's fingernails allegedly contained intestinal matter similar to that found at the crime scene. For the prosecution, this was enough. The public wanted a culprit. The system was ready to provide one. The trial began on June 24, 1891, gripping the city's attention. The prosecution relied almost entirely on forensic testimony, blood analysis, and biological evidence. Experts spoke confidently, displaying samples and scientific jargon that created an aura of unquestionable authority. The defense fought back. Under cross-examination, prosecution experts admitted they could not state with certainty that the blood was human, nor even that it came from a mammal. Defense experts argued that the so-called science was, at best, circumstantial and insufficient for a conviction. Amir Ben Ali testified in his own defense, but his account appeared inconsistent. Language barriers, stress, and an unfamiliar legal system all worked against him. The jury did not believe the Algerian immigrant. July 4, Independence Day, was approaching, and there was a palpable desire to conclude the trial. Time and holiday pressure weighed on the court as heavily as the evidence. On July 3, 1891, the case went to the jury. Inside the deliberation room, debate raged. 11 jurors favored a conviction for first-degree murder. One held out for second-degree murder. Hours passed. The national holiday loomed. No one wanted to spend the 4th of July locked in deliberations over the fate of an Algerian immigrant. A compromise was reached. The unanimous verdict? Guilty of second-degree murder. Officially, justice had been served. In reality, it was a surrender to circumstance. Amir bin Ali was sent to Sing Sing prison, one of the harshest institutions in America. Later, one juror would publicly claim that the jury had been stacked and the verdict unjust. But it was too late. The sentence stood. The case was closed. The newspapers moved on. Society had its culprit. The police restored their reputation. Inspector Burns could sleep soundly. Only Amir knew that justice had not been done. Amir bin Ali spent 11 years behind bars for a crime he may not have committed. Doubts began to surface among journalists. Jacob Riis, the famed reporter and reformer, and Charles Edward Russell launched their own investigation. What they uncovered stunned them. The evidence presented at trial did not match what journalists had seen at the crime scene on April 24th. The crucial bloodstains on Amir's door may have been planted, accidentally or deliberately. Under mounting public pressure, Governor Benjamin Odell ordered a review of the case. In 1902, Amir bin Ali was released. The governor officially declared him innocent of the murder of Carrie Brown. It was an unprecedented admission of judicial error. A system desperate for a culprit had stolen 11 years of an innocent man's life. Justice prevailed, but at a terrible cost. And the real killer? In 1901, a year before Amir's release, a new lead emerged. A farmer in Crawford, New Jersey, told police about a strange hired hand, a Dane, who had been absent on the night Carrie Brown was murdered. Shortly after April 24, 1891, the man vanished, leaving behind a blood-stained shirt and a key eerily similar to those used at the East River Hotel. It was an intriguing clue, but a decade had passed. The man was long gone. The shirt and key may have been lost or destroyed. Witness memories had faded. The case could not be reopened on such tenuous evidence. Was it the truth, or merely coincidence? Was the unknown Dane the real killer, or just another false lead? The murder of Carrie Brown remains unsolved, one of the great criminal mysteries of 19th century New York. Somewhere in police archives, the file marked "closed" gathers dust, while the truth remains undiscovered. And the ghost of the old actress known as Old Shakespeare still lingers in history, waiting for justice.